Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome branding, media, entertainment specialist, speaker, and entrepreneur Evan Shapiro. So welcome, Evan.
Thank you.
So Evan, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. Can you share with us how your entrepreneurial journey started and your passion for branding and entertainment?
So both my passion for entertainment and my entrepreneurial endeavors started probably in high school or college. I was very active in theater and other arts in high school,
Yes.
including directing. And then when I went to college, I helped resurrect a decades-old theater company at the school. And we turned it into basically our own little business where we were funded in part by the school, but then raised a tremendous amount of money through ad sales for playbills and donations and things like that, where we produced our own theater projects outside the theater department in a theater at University of Massachusetts. And then when I moved to New York City, I came here to write and direct. I dropped out of college. I moved to New York City to write and direct. I took day jobs in the arts, and then I would produce and write and direct theater at night and during the summer and on weekends. Um, and then I continued on both tracks for many, many years, getting really nice jobs in the for-profit and nonprofit theater world until the point where I was the head of marketing of the New York Shakespeare Festival, the Public Theater, Shakespeare in the Park, the organization that runs all that. And then after I did the marketing for a bunch of shows that the public had done on Broadway, I was getting a number of calls from commercial producers to go and work for them. And rather than go take a job somewhere, I started a marketing agency for branding and marketing entertainment, live entertainment primarily. And that was the end of my directing and writing career because I just could not open a new business and take on clients and responsibly disappear to go direct and produce theater in the middle of nowhere in the village. And the entrepreneurial aspect of my life really became my career at that point. And we not only worked on live entertainment, but this was the first .com bubble. We took on .com clients, television clients, a number of other clients, internet clients, including HBO and Universal Pictures and a bunch of .comers. And then one of my clients offered me a job doing marketing in-house. That was Court TV. They've since become True TV. I sold my part of the agency. I went to work at Court TV, rebranded them into a forensics channel. And then a couple years later, IFC TV offered me the opportunity to become head of marketing there. And it was basically an audition to become general manager. And about less than a year later, I became general manager of IFC. And that's really when I got back into content creation. When I ran IFC, I produced a number of different things, including This Film Is Not Yet Rated, Portlandia, Comedy Bang Bang, and then continued to move up in channel running and management in television while getting deeply into content creation and executive producing for a number of different things. So that's the shortest version I can give you.
Wow, no, that's an amazing career. Wow. So, branding in the media industry is highly competitive and very noisy. And now that we have so many platforms and the use of social media, how and what do you believe makes you stand out from your competitors? And what do you think makes your style and approach different to what others are doing?
Oof. So, I rebrand. So just to back up a little bit, along the path I just demonstrated, I worked on a number of different campaigns for non-entertainment, but primarily entertainment clients. So I helped launch Chicago on Broadway, which is still running today. I helped launch Lion King on Broadway, which is still running today. I rebranded the Public Theater as Shakespeare in the Park, Public Theater Downtown, using a lot of the elements that are still being employed by the Public Theater and Shakespeare in the Park today.
Okay.
I rebranded IFC from an independent film channel to a comedy channel. Rebranded Court TV from a courts and trials channel into a forensics channel. Helped create other brands upon launch like Pivot and CISO. And so along the way, what I've learned is that people say content is king.
Yes,
In entertainment marketing, I believe that that is not just a true adage. It is actually the only way to market content.
absolutely.
So trying to get between the audience and the content and be clever about the marketing, yeah, that might work initially, but if you set up an unrealistic expectation for a piece of content with an audience, once they get there, they will hate you.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
the best, my strongest tact when I talk about marketing entertainment, or branding entertainment, is let the content um, be the boss. Let the content be the message.
Yes.
And the more you layer on top of that, as a lot of my friends in the marketing business, and in fact, one of my favorite marketers in entertainment, Kent Reese, says, let's not play hide the weenie here. Let's just address the issue and take on the central message of the content and let that be the star. And if you look
Yes.
at the most successful campaigns that I've been a part of, whether it was TV Uncut for IFC, or the initial Chicago campaign, or the Bring It a Noise, Bring It a Funk campaign for the public theater, or Shakespeare in the Park, which was the big rebranding for Shakespeare in the Park, was a campaign I called Free Will, which is a quintuple entendre of free Shakespeare in the Park, but also free choice, and an anti-censorship message, all rolled into one. This film is not yet rated, was a documentary that did very well for us, but it was also kind of part of a larger branding message about IFC at the time, which is we had no censorship. Films ran on the network uncut and uncensored without commercial interruption. And all of those things really worked. And in each case, the content was the star, not the copy.
Yes, absolutely. That makes so much sense. So that also leads me, still into sort of social media as well and how it's impacted all of us in both a positive and negative way. So, what do you believe from a branding perspective has to improve the current narrative to create more sustainability and relevance for brands? And how do you believe we need to use these platforms more responsibly?
So I think it's folly to think that a brand, an entertainment brand or any other kind of brand, cannot allow itself to be a part of the hive. So
Yes,
it's not just have a Twitter page or have an Instagram feed or have a Facebook page. It's having the core values as a part of your message and the bravery to allow the audience to participate in the marketing itself. If you can't do that, then it's going to be very difficult for you as a brand to succeed in the next 25 years.
yeah,
On the
absolutely.
and I think, especially post Black Lives Matter, post COVID,
Yes,
post truth, which is the era that we're in, the brands who are most authentic and have true values, as a heart of who they are actually going to do the best. And I think you see brands who don't have their value system organized in a way that they can articulate it and have them be authentic values. I think you're going to see those brands get taken apart by the social media ecosystem.
yeah, for
Um,
sure. Or they're just going to disappear.
yeah, I mean, there's disappear, but then there's also, getting canceled.
Yes,
And it is easy to not get canceled. Not being an asshole is part of that, but
yes,
also understanding what is important to you as a value system, regardless of what happens in the marketplace, is really, really important.
yes,
Um, I think the biggest issue we're having with social media is a lack of media literacy, amongst
yes.
all human beings on Earth.
Mm,
In
I
America,
agree.
we allow kids access to iPhones and the internet and social media. We do not teach them, critical thinking with regards to the messages that they're receiving, and that's how you get fake news. That's how you get, people clicking on "I agree to the terms and conditions" without reading the terms and conditions. That's how you
Yes,
get anti-vaxxing. That's how you get, conspiracy theories that turn into movements. And so, it is an education process. It's about starting in kindergarten and
yes,
teaching our citizens critical thinking about the messages they're receiving, what the agenda behind those messages are, what the ulterior motives of the people sending those messages are, and how to weed out bullshit from truth.
Absolutely.
You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And right
Yes.
now, we've
True.
created a series of silos that have their own facts, and that's not a way to communicate.
No.
And, so to me, it is the responsibility of, the government, but also corporate America, to teach our citizens how to understand marketing and how to know what is true and what isn't true. There is opinion, but then there are just basic facts. And until and unless we spend a tremendous amount of energy and resources educating the people in the United States and around the rest of the world on how to read something with a critical eye, we're going to continue to have, a lot of the problems that we're facing right now.
Absolutely. So within that, what are some of your biggest career lessons? I'm sure you've had a lot, but like what stands out for you the most?
I think, one of the most important things is, especially I think has become incredibly true in the last year, is, if you subvert what's important to you in exchange for a title or a paycheck, ultimately you will not benefit.
No.
You may benefit in the short term. You might get a
not
great
in the
paycheck or a great title, but eventually things turn and you wind up, regretting those decisions. And I think a lot of people, 28,000 jobs were lost in the media industry this past year. And I think there are a lot of people who, given the chance to speak up when given the chance about certain aspects of our media business in the past, and didn't, I think they might be rethinking that right now. There was a report that came out yesterday from the Hollywood Commission, led by Anita Hill. This is 3 years after Harvey Weinstein went down.
Yeah.
That 2/3 of women in the entertainment business have experienced some sort of sexual harassment or unwanted sexual advances in the last year.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest recommendations out of that was bystander training, so that people who witness bad behavior, whether it's racism or sexism or sexual harassment or bias in any way, feel more comfortable and feel more courageous to speak up.
Yeah.
And, we are living in an era, whether it's 300,000 dead from COVID or, election denialism, or anti-vaxxer or whatever, kind of mistake society has made, sexual harassment, Me Too, George Floyd being killed, where good people doing nothing has created a scenario by where the world is literally burning down around ourselves, whether it's climate change or this virus or whatever it is, populism populism in government, Brexit, we can go down the long list of things that have gone wrong in the last 5 years, because a lot of, still, while we had an election with, the largest turnout in a century in the United States, 1/3 of all Americans, 80 million Americans who were eligible to vote, didn't still.
Yeah.
And by large numbers, those people, those 80 million people, are the people who most need government to come to their assistance because they have less education or lower income.
Yeah.
They're more at risk. They're less likely to have health insurance. And because we have a lot of people who just feel like it's not their job to say the right thing. It's not their job to sacrifice. It's not their job to speak up. And it's a big problem. There's an apathy that has entered our system that is built upon the complacency of privilege that America has established over the last 25 years that is kind of embarrassing. And these are the things we need to address. So I guess my biggest lesson is, it may not be comfortable in the moment, but sticking up for what you believe is ultimately the most important thing.
No, absolutely. So you're also a speaker. So was this an organic expansion within your career, or was it more of a new challenge for you, if that makes sense? So was it an easy transition, or was it something you knew you wanted to do and you transitioned into it easily, or was it more challenging?
No, it's something I very much enjoy doing. I mean, the first time you speak in public, it's very challenging, but
Yes.
after you get comfortable on it, and different people speak in public differently. I tend to kind of write outlines and speak from an outline, but then, kind of improvise in the moment. Um, and I enjoy kind of presenting with a PowerPoint slide as a result of that. It really started, I think, was largely driven by the fact that I started teaching at NYU. I had, it's a combination of different things. I joined a lot of organizations in the television industry, which gave me the opportunity to speak on panels and do keynotes. And that gave me the opportunity, to teach at NYU, which then kind of gave me an even deeper practice of doing it on a repeated basis, which only makes you, it's the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours of practice makes you an expert. I also was very fortunate through my job to be demanded to become a topic expert in a number of different ways, and not only through my job but through other associations that I joined. So I became a part of the Ghetto Film School in 2004, 2005. And at that point, I was chair of the board a couple of times. I learned a lot about, diversity and inclusion, and the lack of equitable opportunity for people of color, and other diverse backgrounds in the entertainment industry. And that allowed me to become, I consider myself a topic expert in this area. That's unusual for a middle-aged white Jew.
Yes.
I was very active with women in cable television for many, many years, including helping them establish a mentoring program that enabled me to, and I live with only women. I have two adult daughters. I've been able to really understand and empathize with, and, take a strong position on equitable opportunity and, harassment in the workplace for women.
Yes.
Because of a couple of different things I did at IFC, and then when I worked at Participant Media, I was forced to really do deep study in generational dynamics, especially around millennials and now Generation Z. That's enabled me to, establish an expertise in that area, and that's those 3 or 4 areas I get asked to speak upon a lot. And so, it's a combination of having a lot of opportunities to do it, but then also understanding that if you become a student of certain topics and to the point where you can consider yourself an expert in those areas, it opens up a lot of doors, and those doors lead to new and challenging and different opportunities that would not present themselves any other way. And then I now do that as a writer on LinkedIn and a number of different areas. So it was a distinct choice to explore new areas of expertise, and allow those areas and my position as a public speaker to create new opportunities for myself.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So, branding, entertainment, and media has changed a lot, and now consumers are more mindful when purchasing and are really asking many more questions. So, what do you believe brands are having to do to retain their audience and also to be more transparent about the value they retain for longevity? And what do you believe you can bring to the table in terms of working with brands?
So, companies have for a number of years spent time discovering what their mission is and their purpose and their core values. Not every company, but a lot of companies. Disney has done this, and Walgreens has done this, and 3M has done this. And, the companies that actually are successful, more often than not have those things figured out, because the companies that understand what their purpose and their core values are, regardless of what happens in the marketplace, are able to adapt when the marketplace changes. When you look at what Disney's been able to do in the last year, going from 0 to 85 million streaming subscribers, and their stock price doubling as a result of that, while their theme parks are shut and movie theaters are closed, that's amazing. That's incredible. And it's driven by 100 years almost of dedication to one principle, which is making people happy.
Yes.
That is their mission. When you look at Nike, Adidas and Reebok and Under Armour and all these other brands come and go. Nike, regardless of what happens in the marketplace, and even facing certain challenges themselves, they have a mission of vanquishing their rivals. And as a result, when you focus on that as your kind of core, reason for being, you can stay true to that North Star regardless of what happens in the marketplace. There are tons of different examples of that. Post-COVID, post-truth era, post George Floyd and Me Too, or Black Lives Matter and Me Too, and with the huge tsunami of millennials and Gen Zs who will now be not only the home run consumers, but also the key executives in many businesses. Evan Spiegel at Snap is a millennial. Mark Zuckerberg is a millennial. These generations, the millennial generation is kind of like it takes a village generation, kind of personified by AOC and folks like that. And Gen Z is a kind of take no bullshit generation,
Yes.
personified by David Hogg and Emma Gonzalez, and they're not going. These two generations, as consumers and as employees, are not gonna take bullshit. They can sniff it out, and so figuring out what your core values are as a company and then stating them obviously to the consumer is going to trump having a good product, because in the marketplace there's always going to be good products. There's going to be a good car, there's going to be great potato chips, there's going to be good soda, there's going to be a great movie, but those companies who offer values, not just value, those are the consumer is going to pay attention to those things probably first. Not kind of like I like these potato chips, I wonder what their core values are. It's going to be, I need some potato chips. Which company has the core values that agree with mine? Who supports people regardless of who they love and what color they are? Who supports the environment regardless of how it affects their business proposition? Who believes in freedom of speech even when it's uncomfortable? These are the companies, these shouldn't be political issues.
No, they
Supporting all
shouldn't
people
be.
regardless of who you love and what color you are, that's kind of a key element of what we think our democracy is about in the United States, and all Western cultures should be about. But overtly stating these things, and it's exemplified. I mean, a lot of companies, put up their black square right after George Floyd was murdered, and that's nice. But beyond Instagram, what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a behavioral change that needs to take place.
And the companies who day in, day out, year after year, stay true to those things over time, they will be the companies that build brand loyalty. The ones who blackwash or whitewash or greenwash or pinkwash, it will out. It will definitely out.
No, absolutely. So that leads me to the current situation of COVID-19 and how it's turned our world upside down and inside out. So can you share with us how this has impacted your business, and what have you done to adapt in these challenging times, and can you give us any examples?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the work that I'm doing now focuses on things like podcasts, which can be done, very safely. I'm embarking on a scripted podcast with a really great cast of very cool people. They're all recording from their homes. And I have a couple of podcasts that I work on that fill that area. I teach at Fordham, I teach at NYU. I've had to do all of that via Zoom for the last year. And there are things being shot right now. Tons of TV and tons of movies are being shot. I can't say that I'm a huge fan of the idea of risking people's lives to shoot a movie. But I also understand that people need entertainment and people need to work to earn a living. One of the big side effects of the current crisis in the entertainment industry is that the cost of producing live action entertainment, film and television, it has dramatically increased the cost. 30-40%. And that means, people are really only taking risks on shows that they've either already had on the air or have big stars in them, and that they know that are kind of commensurate to the risk of cost and health issues. Um, Beyond that, though, I also am on the board of the American Theater Wing, which produces the Tony Awards and represents a tremendous amount of theater artists. And there is no theater in the United States. I also work with a ton of comedians who really, the vast majority of them can't perform right now.
Yeah.
Clubs are closed across the country. Music venues are closed across the country. And so, it's really had a hard effect on the performers and managers, and, you're seeing layoffs as a consequence of that, both on the management side and the agency side, but also, on the corporate side at platforms like Disney and Warner and Viacom. I think also, as a consequence, what you're seeing is a form of inventiveness born out of necessity. Things like OnlyFans and Cameo and Patreon, where artists are creating direct relationships with their audiences and generating real, revenue as a result of that. And I think that is going to greatly shift, the power structure in Hollywood for many years to come.
Yes.
Maybe not immediately in a huge way, but certainly down the line.
Yes.
When an artist knows that they can charge 50,000 fans $10 a month for exclusive content, do they really need to sign that crazy disadvantaged record contract with a studio, with a label?
Yes.
There are tons of artists out there who are making 6-7 figures a year doing Patreon accounts or OnlyFans accounts or Cameo accounts, who don't really want to go work for a corporate monolith and make a show that they have to get notes from a junior executive at the top of a tower.
Yes.
There are a lot of people who don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
that was not an option 10 years ago. Yeah. Now that's an option. So I think those are incredibly important. I think, the acceleration of streaming, you look at the decision Warner Media made last week to great Sturm and Drang about moving their movies direct to streaming on HBO Max. Yeah, I think part of that is born of COVID, but part of that is born out of the fact that the movie theatrical release business was not so great to begin with, and disintegration was accelerated by the current crisis.
Yes.
So I do think you're going to see a complete and utter shift in the theatrical movie release structure. Where theaters will be a component, but it'll probably be more and often than not a day and date component with streaming, as opposed to a standalone, it's on Friday, the movie releases, how did we do?
Yes.
I also think you're going to see a tremendous amount of animation happen in the coming year and a half as a result of this current crisis, because it's easier to make safely. So
yes.
I think there's going to be tons of different ripple effects. One of the largest ones will be centered around the theatrical release, as I mentioned. I think another one will be the move from a linear dominated world driven by advertising and subscriptions to one that is much more on demand and streaming driven primarily by subscriptions and not by advertising.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. So that leads me to leadership, which is obviously a big subject right now. So how do you believe your leadership style is different, and can you give us some examples?
Yeah, I tend to be a warts and all, doors always open, say it exactly as it is type of leader.
Yes.
Often to my detriment. And as a result, those who prefer top-down management, I'm not their guy.
No.
As a consequence, I also tend to have very strong relationships with the people who work with me, and those relationships tend to last over a very long period of time, with many people coming to work for me in more than one circumstance. At NYU and Fordham, the way I run my class is substantially driven by the Socratic method of conversation and two-way communication between the class and myself.
Yes.
I think as a consequence, I tend to stay closer to my students over a longer period of time than a lot of professors who are adjuncts tend to do.
Yes.
I very much believe in a no one is smarter than everyone tact. I very much do not believe that just because you're old and rich that you have all the answers. And I tend to drive the businesses I lead that way. Oftentimes that's created conflict between me and senior leadership in the businesses I've worked at.
Yes.
And as a consequence, also a very strong bond with the people who work with me, because they know that I'm fighting for what I believe in and always fighting on their behalf.
Yes. And
That
also
is
it's
not,
about maintaining and sustaining long relationships, like you say.
yeah, I will also say that that isn't typically how Hollywood has been managed.
No.
And it is one of the reasons why I'm not one of the 12 old white men running Hollywood. So
Yes.
I can say that I think it's right for me. I cannot say that I think it's right for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think, you have to be true to yourself. We all have to make livings. We all have to protect our families. We all have to do what's right for us in any given moment. And so, that's my approach. I can't say that it's something that everybody feels comfortable doing.
Yeah, for sure. So you're an award winner. Do you believe that winning these awards opened other career opportunities? And how much has this impacted your career, and has this contributed to your other successes? Or was this just something that was an addition that didn't really have much influence? Because some people say, awards is just the cherry on the top, and then others feel like it's made a difference to their career. So I was just wondering your perspective.
I mean, if you win an Emmy or you win a Peabody, and I've never won an Oscar or a Tony, but if you win an award, it's great marketing. It's great
Yes.
branding. You can say you're an award winner and you can include it in your bio and all those things. So I do think it's important from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
Especially something like the Peabodys, which I've won a couple of times. To me, the mission of the Peabodys, it's voted on by critics and academics and people, who understand the industry really well. It is not a popularity contest. It is literally, when you look at their mission, about the quality of the work itself. You're not even against anybody else. You just you submit your stuff, and they either give you the award or they do not give you the award. You're not in competition with anyone else.
Yeah.
I think I value those awards.
Yes.
Obviously, winning an Emmy for Hit Record was really cool, and it made me very happy when we won, the Golden Globe for Carlos at Sundance Channel, and we beat HBO. That was, that felt really great.
Yeah.
I think they're primarily marketing tools, though. I don't know that they, in and of themselves, really add true value to the ecosystem. And I
Yes.
think that to a certain extent, there's the over importance we give awards is really distracting.
Yes. Very true.
And expensive. I mean, people spend a tremendous amount of money campaigning for awards.
Yeah.
Money that could have been spent making other content.
Yes.
And
Very true.
I don't know that in the end it really means all that much, but
Yeah.
Portlandia probably became more famous because we got a bunch of Emmy nominations and a Peabody Award. Brick City got recognized by more people as a good television show to watch because it got a Peabody Award and an Emmy nomination. So, I think they're important to highlight certain work by certain artists, but I think at the end of the day, the industry, especially Hollywood, spends too much time, attention, and money on awards.
Yeah, very true. So that leads me to the final question. What are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to others looking to pursue a career in this industry, and what legacy would you like to leave, or how would you like to be remembered?
Those are 2 different questions.
Yeah.
The 3 pieces of advice, I think, again, stay true to yourself, because otherwise you'll regret it. I think, speaking truth to power is going to become increasingly important. And I think those who do that will actually be recognized in a better way than they have previously.
Yes.
And then I think, the last piece of advice I would give someone who wants to enter this industry is, unless your parents already worked in the industry, there's no easy way in.
No.
It is a kick the doors down kind of thing.
Yes.
And Quentin Tarantino a long time ago said, just start making stuff.
Yes.
There is a really good lesson in finding your tribe, finding a group of people you really dig, and doing good stuff with them, regardless of whether or not it's for pay right now.
Yeah.
And the world is celebrating that, in a way that they hadn't previously. Even in the kind of first .com bubble, where it was going to be, content was going to be democratized.
Yes.
Now there is actually a way to democratize talent and content that didn't exist before. OnlyFans, Cameo, TikTok, all these different ways.
Yes.
Amy Poehler and Tina Fey met when they were in their early 20s, and they still work together today.
Yeah.
Scorsese and De Niro. We can go down a long list. And, finding a tribe that you want to do good work with and doing good work with them will beget more good work. And so
Yes.
just start doing it is a big part of, I guess, the advice I would give. The legacy I would like to leave.
That's always a tricky one.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the thing I think I do as well as anybody in the industry, and maybe even best in the world in our industry, is help lead change.
Yes.
Whether it's throwing stones from the sidelines or driving change internally at big companies, I really take pride on not allowing the status quo to exist simply because it's the status quo.
Yes.
And I think, whether it's helping young people find their way into the industry, helping older people find a second life in the industry, helping artists who have been previously left out of the conversation, people of color, women, queer and transgender people. I helped produce the first stand-up special by a transgender man. I helped create the first sitcom that was by and about a queer female couple.
Yes.
I've tried over the years to help people, break down the ghetto walls around Hollywood with Ghetto Film School.
Yes.
And so I hope the legacy is that I helped lead change in our industry in a positive way.
Absolutely. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Evan, for your time. So if people want to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
If you really want a whole big dose of politics, on Twitter at eShap, ESHAP. And then I publish usually twice a day on LinkedIn under Evan Shapiro. And it's where I do kind of the most big thinking about the media industry.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we can have you back in the future. And
Anytime.
yeah, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.